The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Art Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Digati, and with me today is author and scientist, Sonya Prichard. Sonya, welcome. It's nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So Sonya and I met at the Pennhurst Asylum Paracon, where she is promoting her book, Shades of the Lingering. And that's available on Amazon. And you can learn a little bit more about Sonya and her upcoming stuff by going to Sonya Prichard. That's SONYA Prichard.com. And I did introduce you as both an author and a scientist. Can we talk a little bit about the scientist part? What type of scientist are you?
Sure. I've been in science for over 25 years. Started out doing Alzheimer's research in the lab, did maybe 11 years of cancer research, moved on to vaccine development at a not-for-profit organization. And this is the fun part. Throughout COVID, I was managing a virology lab. So virology is the study of
that's
viruses.
a lot.
Yeah, so that was interesting to be in that field as that was coming through. And it sort of burned me out a little bit. And so here I am. I'm now training scientists. I'm completely out of the lab and just training scientists who are working in the lab currently.
Wow, very, very cool. So when we talk about, I love science. I'm also in healthcare. I work in healthcare IT now, but I have previously worked in the 911 public safety pre-hospital care arts. And science is important. And one of the things that I thought was very, very thought-provoking about your book is that the main character, can we say a little autobiographical?
It is definitely a little autobiographical. People who know me and have read the book tell me that they have a very hard time separating Nadia from Sonya. And many have asked me, a lot of the things that happened in the story, did they really happen? Or is a lot of that made up? I mean, a lot of it is made up, but a lot of it is really, really true.
And the perspective is so important, and it's backed up with the aura of, she's believable as a scientist because it's written by a scientist.
Right.
That kind of thing. Now, did you always enjoy writing?
So here's the funny story. No, I never took a creative writing class in my life. It was always science, science, science. I like to read, but I think I surprised everybody when I came home one night from work and just out of the blue, said, hey, I think I'm going to write a novel. And I don't think anybody really believed me. Like I said, never really talked about it. It was never one of those things like, before I die, on my bucket list is I'm going to write a novel. No, never had that as a wish. It just sort of a story came to me and I wrote it.
Now, when you were growing up and in your what I like to call our formative creative years, what were you into? What books did you read? What were you reading? Were you just reading textbooks and science stuff, or did you like, scary movies? Like, did you always have an interest in things horror and paranormal?
Always. I think I was just born to follow this path. I really, really do. I think I've always been interested in the scary movies, even if, afterwards I was afraid to go to bed and afraid to let my feet dangle over the side of the bed.
We all know what's under there.
We all do. We all do. And in the closet as well. Books, my main character is Nadia King. I love Stephen King, so it's really a tribute to him.
That's great. Nice homage.
I just love Stephen King. All the Anne Rice books, the vampires and the witches.
Oh yeah, I was addicted.
Read all of those. So I've always been interested in the paranormal, and having friends who were also interested, it keeps the conversation going, right? So pretty much my whole life, teens up until now, or even younger, when we were having slumber parties. I was always the one, let's tell ghost stories. Let's sit around the fire and tell ghost stories until we were all too afraid and we all wanted to go home.
There's a whole generation of people that are picturing that scene in The Craft, light as a feather.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
never did that. What was, now I got to ask, what was the slumber party? What was the slumber party spooky thing? Telling ghost stories. Did you have any kind of a urban legend thing happening, or what was the slumber party scare your friends tactic? Because we had a very specific one where I'm from.
We did. And I can specifically remember we had a group of us. We were staying in, one of the campers that you're supposed to pull behind the truck.
Right. Yeah.
All sleeping in there. And I can remember telling this story. It was about some girl who would, knock on the door, and if you would let her in, you would die or something.
Oh,
and I can remember they hid somebody underneath the seats, how they fold down. They put somebody underneath and they ended up knocking, and I think it scared all of us. And I think after that, we all ended up sleeping in the house. So I think it was just a general story of something that gets your nerves up.
Right. We had Mary Worth, not the comic strip. There was like an old timey comic strip, but Mary Worth, and that's what she was called in suburban harbor towns in New England. And there were all kinds of like rumors, and it got worse and more weirdly inaccurate the more teenage girls talked about it. She was a witch burned in Salem, and I'm doing air quotes because nobody was burned in Salem, they were all hanged, but it was the idea that she was this witch, and whoever came up with Candyman had to have grown up where we did, because the way you summoned Mary Worth, whoever this, and there was nobody, like, if you look up who the people were who were executed, there's no Mary Worth. I don't know where this actually came from, but you had to light a candle, and you got gaggles of teen girls and tween girls doing this. You lit a candle in front of a mirror and you said, I believe in Mary Worth 3 times. Now, true. And something was happening, and you always hear it in what I like to call the urban legend context, the fof, the friend of a friend. It's always your best friend's cousins, sisters, boyfriends, aunt that did this. Right. And then she got scratched, or there was a drop of blood underneath her chair on the rug. All these crazy, it's always somebody way unverifiable had some kind of crazy experience. So my mom is hyper Catholic, very Mediterranean Catholic. There was to be no funny business in her house, because her mom was very, very spiritually interesting. So I think she kind of was very anti anything spooky. So my girlfriend Angie and I, and shout out to Angie, who's been my friend since, well, I don't know, I don't remember meeting her. So we're like at my house. So I got to be about 11. She's got to be about 13. So it's prime age for getting up to this kind of caper. And what happened was, my mom was running around. She was like, she saw us like, tittering around, because how subtle young girls are. And we thought we were being very sneaky. And we got a mirror, and we got the candle, and the only room in the house that didn't have a window or we could make dark was the bathroom. And I think my mom kind of got wind of what was going on, again, because we were so subtle. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, you're not doing that kind of witchy stuff in my house. And so we kind of like, yes. And we wait for her. I don't remember if she went outside to the garden, whatever it is. We waited till we could ditch my mom, and we snuck into the bathroom, because we were like, waiting around. We went down, and so we finally came back in, and we snuck into the bathroom. And again, remember how subtle young girls are. So we go into the bathroom, and we close the door, and it's very dark, and I light the candle. And then I said, all right, Ange, I'll say it, then you say it, and we'll say it together. Okay. So I start, I believe in Mary Worth. And Angie, with wide eyes, I believe in Mary Worth. And then the two of us together, we're holding hands, we're shaking. I believe in Mary Worth. Didn't see that my mom had hidden behind the shower curtain, and came out and just was like, I told you. I don't know who was in more trouble, really, because my mom was laughing so hard, I think she had to use the bathroom, kick us out. And Angie and I had like bumping into each other, like Abbott and Costello trying to get away from the mummy. It was my mummy that did it. So yeah. So the interest is always there when we're young. Thanks for letting me share that, because Angie somewhere is going, I don't remember this. No,
and I mean, life. I think we called it Bloody Mary or something.
Bloody Mary,
Bloody Mary. You know what I mean? And I think that probably just a different permutation of it, right?
So I think there's a teenage girl in all of us that
Yep.
remembers that and loves that kind of suspense. One of the things that I think is interesting is that some people will relate that these slumber parties aside, having a paranormal experience, especially at an earlier age, can be very pivotal in the interest. Did you ever have a paranormal experience?
I've had a couple that I really can't explain. I mean, it's just you look back and you're like, did it really happen? I mean, as far as
Right.
seeing anything, I just know that in the house that I grew up in, the basement was not anywhere I wanted to be by myself. And so,
Really?
of course, when you had friends over, that was where you wanted to be, right? You wanted to go down there and play with the Ouija board and all that kind of stuff and just, mess with things you really probably shouldn't be messing with.
I don't think people realize
And
how many of us had Ouija boards at a certain era in time. I'm not gonna pigeonhole you, but I'm gonna say for me it was in the 70s. There was like a
yeah,
Ouija board in every house. Everybody had one.
seriously,
They were
everybody,
everywhere.
everybody. Yeah. And I
And they were
mean,
made
my
by
mom and I were the
Hasbro
ones
or
that,
Parker Brothers or something.
yeah, yeah. And I always wondered, if it's so dangerous, everybody says don't play with it. Well, then why is Parker Brothers, putting it out there for us?
It's right
So
next to the Monopoly.
I know, right?
It's on the
So,
shelf next to the Monopoly. You know,
so I
you
mean,
can
I
pay
can
for
remember being,
boardwalk.
yeah, I can remember being down there and playing and, don't know if it was a coincidence. And this is what everybody starts their stories with, right? You're going to think I'm crazy. Was it a coincidence? I don't know. You know what I mean? But, the orbs that they're always talking about, we had what do you call it? A wood burner in the corner.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I could swear I can still remember we're playing on the floor and I can remember this orb coming out of the wood burner and flying across the room and going to the other side of the room. And I was like, stopped, mid sentence. I said, did you see that? She's like, yeah, I saw that. And so we went running upstairs and we didn't stay downstairs. So I don't know what that was, but that was definitely
Right.
one of those things. And then, of course, every other time we had to go downstairs and try to do it again.
Oh
So
my God. And
poke
and
the
it's
bear.
and it's true. I mean, Ouija boards were in every house. They were right. They were, it sounded like I was making a joke, but they were on the game shelf next to like
Yeah.
Monopoly and backgammon and whatever else, your family was into. And it was like, sure, you can, play a little AC Doocy, you can land on Boardwalk and Park Place, or you can talk to Captain Howdy. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a parlor game, and it was really, really
Yeah.
popular. So science versus the paranormal. And you said you had things that you couldn't explain. I'm getting the feeling you're a lady who likes to explain things.
It bothers me when I can't explain things. And
Sure.
personally, being a scientist, if something has not been explained by science yet, I'm convinced that there will be a way at some point that science will explain it. So I think that's what led me into my book. You have all this paranormal stuff going on. I hear stories that, I 100% believe. I have no way to dispute what people are telling me. They tell me what they see. They tell me these amazing stories and these very cool coincidences. And it just makes me think that there's got to be a reason for it. And knowing what I know about science and going through all the biology classes that I've gone through, I put into my book how I thought I would piece it together and how it would make sense to me and how I think it should work.
And we're not going to give any spoiler alerts,
No,
but
no.
the people need to read the book, and it's there's quite a bit of cohesive theory to this, and
Yeah.
it's well thought out, and I think folks should investigate it. But speaking in more general terms, there is something of a school of thought that's typically mainstream, that science versus the paranormal have to be mutually exclusive.
Mm,
That that any kind of metaphysical paranormal stuff has to be completely out of the realm of science, although it's becoming the science of paranormal investigation is a legit, it is a science,
right.
and people use the scientific method and all that good stuff. But it used to be you had scientists, hard science, and then
Mm-hmm.
you had everybody else who were up until and I'm going to blame my friends Jay and Steve and Grant for bringing this mainstream in their show. Now it's, of course, a thing. Now it's very mainstream. It's very cool to be interested in investigating. But it used to be you had scientists and crackpots,
Yep.
and that was the generic, view of these types of things, is that you had, these people were scientists and the other people were just wingnuts who were put in the same category as people who were not legitimately presenting scientific evidence. And I'm so glad that's changed,
Yeah.
because I think a lot is happening out there. And there's a lot of people talk about different types of hauntings. They talk about residual hauntings, where an example might be somebody going to Gettysburg and they see the soldiers marching into the forest. And that, of course, is something from the 1860s rather than our present day. And when I started learning about the different types of haunting around that same time, and I think you're gonna feel me on this. I read a book called Einstein's Greatest Blunder, and anybody who knows me can tell you I'm no astrophysicist of any kind. I mean, I got a couple of neurons that still fire, but I'm not a formally trained physicist of any type or all of that. But the basics of quantum theory I can grasp. And the thing is that I seem to think that some of this ghost stuff, some of this residual stuff, some of it has a whole lot more to do with space and time than spirituality.
I 100% agree. And even, the informational talents, precognition, retrocognition, those kind of things. You're talking about wormholes and, time travel and those kind of things. Like, who's to say that a lot of those things aren't tied together? And maybe people who are getting these messages are getting them from people who are able to do that. You know what I mean? Or people or spirits, whatever, that are able to do that.
Well, I mean, mediumship, there's been extensive studies. Some of the folks down, usually places down like at Duke at the Rhine Center, and there are other such institutions that for decades now have been researching mediumship and ESP. I had a gentleman on in my first season who works with a service to actually proof mediums. They have mediums do, and they have a service where they list the mediums that they have put through their paces, and it's been proven that they to their satisfaction that they are legitimately giving and receiving messages and communicating with the spirits. So I mean, this is not under researched, but
right.
there's so much going on because, like I said, I get the time and space thing and everything, and in general, a lot of people, I think, start off as unbelievers and then become believers. And some of the characters in your book kind of come off that way. It's interesting to see the comparative as the story unfolds.
Yes. Yeah. Like you said, it blows my mind that people think that science and the paranormal studies have to be mutually exclusive. The same for, religion and paranormal. You know what I mean? Why does that always have to be one side or the other? I really think it's just sort of all linked. And I think, as you said, I portrayed in my book, I have characters who 100% believe in the paranormal that are scientists, and I have other scientists who 100% don't want to hear anything about it. You know what I mean? So it's always been that difference that sort of makes me want to dig further. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it absolutely. I'm glad that it's now kind of coming together because I think it's worthy. I think it's a great intellectual pursuit, and I'm very proud of all of the people that have brought it to the mainstream because it's now. I gotta ask only because like I said, I work at a large medical institution and stuff. What do your colleagues say? Do they think? I mean, are you I hate to say this. Are you the weird one on staff? Are you the staff kook? Are you the weirdo?
Yeah, I probably am. I mean, I'll admit it. I probably am. I'm a little crazy, but honestly, the strangest thing about publishing this book, once I published, the company that I worked for actually held a book club.
Oh, that's
And many
wonderful.
people, yeah, it was very, very nice. A lot of people came to it that I did not expect to see. And after that book club meeting, many people came to my office to talk to me and said, I didn't realize that there was another scientist who, believed in this kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. It has opened so many doors to people that I never would have thought would have even given this a second glance or considered that there might be some sort of scientific basis to it. It's just very, very strange to now see how many of us have ended up talking who never talked before and about things that are related to the paranormal and what we think about and experiences that we've had. You know what I mean? So it's very, very strange. I think that's been the most fun thing about publishing this book is just, when I go to book signings, people will come up and I'll be like, have you ever had anything happen? And people are so willing to talk about it. And I never really realized how many people have had experiences that they cannot explain, but they truly believe them. You know what I mean? And like I said, they preface it with, you're not going to believe me, or you think I'm crazy, or,
Right.
let me just put my story out there. And I have to tell them, no, like I legitimately believe you. So just tell me your story. I just want to hear it.
So while our podcast is worldwide, we are both based out of the northeastern United States, and you have an event coming up, and this is the perfect time, I think, to talk about that, because just like everybody's a musician in heart, and we like to go to open mic nights and sing or play, and people love to have a mic in their hand at karaoke. You're right. I think a lot of people have their own very compelling stories, and you have an event designed to share that. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Spring City, Pennsylvania. That's same town, by the way, folks, as the Pennhurst Asylum. So that's the area we're talking about. Coming up on June 27th at a speakeasy called The Gem down on Main Street. So, but talk about. I think the concept is something everyone can appreciate. Tell me about the concept of this event.
Yeah, so the concept, I mean, this is the perfect segue into that, because like I said, when people were coming to my book signings, we were sharing stories and I was hearing stories, and I was coming home and I was writing them down and realizing how many stories are out there. And my friends and I started talking and we're like, we should really get an event going where people could come and have a place where they feel safe to tell these kind of stories and get people who are interested in these kind of stories. We started thinking what would be a cool name for it. Well, Spirited Talk would be an awesome name for this, because you can, at the speakeasy, you can drink spirits while you talk about spirits, right? And, it just so happened that one of my friends had been to the Gem and said, oh, this would be a great space. And the other friend was like, oh, we should do an open mic night. That's a better forum than sitting around a dinner table and everybody trying to hear what's going on.
You sign up just like, you would for.
Yeah. So we're working out the logistics, but yeah, the idea is that people will come to the Gem on June 27th, sign in if they have a story. Great, bring it. You're going to pop up on stage. We'll let you tell your story. If you don't have a story, we would love to have everybody come and just sit in the audience and listen. But we would really like to get some traction on this and fill the room, because I think it's a fun event. I think once everybody realizes how many stories are out there, it's just, some of the stories that I've heard are just so intriguing. What is going on? There's something, and so many people are sensing similar things. It just really makes me wonder.
And for any folks in the local area who are interested in that event, you can go online at the Gem Spring City. That's GEM, thegemspringcity.com. And the event's on June 27th at 6 p.m. But if you go into thegemspringcity.com, you'll be able to get a little bit more information and get yourself involved with that. But the idea of a ghost story open mic, a real ghost story open mic, I've never heard of that. I'm hoping that catches on. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if that became a thing?
It really would. And we're trying to keep it, we're trying to get enough interest so that we can keep it going monthly. We would love to have a monthly event. And when we were at Paracon, we had a couple, paranormal investigators come up to our table. We had a couple mediums come up to our table and say, hey, would you be interested in, traveling to our neck of the woods? We came from Maryland, or we came from Virginia. We would love to find a place down there where we could do this. So honestly,
that'd be great to host them. Sure.
Yeah. And I just recently went on Wednesday to do a promotion up here in Norristown. And the girl who owns the bookstore, this was Read, Recycle, and Repeat, she said, I would love to do an event like that here in our store. Like, would you be interested in doing an open mic night in our store? So it seems like a lot of people are very excited about the idea. And I know we're very excited about the idea. And I just think, like you said, there's not ever been something like this. And how many of us loved to sit around a campfire and tell ghost stories, right? And the fact that these are real ones and what people have actually experienced, I think just gives it a whole nother level.
Yeah, and it's something, like I said, I think that we all have a little bit of common ground. And whether no matter who you are, no matter where you grew up, I think all of us as young people, not just young girls, but young people, had the love of scaring ourselves to death.
Yeah.
And sometimes life, as you go on, shows you things and reveals things that you can't explain. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about your main character, is that she sort of accepts, like, she's this brilliant scientist, but the tween girl who loved to be scared is still in there.
Oh yeah.
And that makes her so relatable. And I think because sometimes, I mean, I'm not gonna, there are a lot of very learned people who have written some brilliant fiction. Like I'm a big Patricia Cornwell fan,
Mhm.
and some of these folks that are scientists, that are medical examiners, they write brilliant books. But sometimes their characters, to me, sometimes feel a little bit lofty and unrelatable. They're very informative,
Mm.
and they're usually very clever, but I didn't feel like I knew them, or they could
Okay.
be someone,
Right.
and I think that the fact that in addition to having all of the science, this is no nice way to say it, all the science balls that she's got, but she also has all the whimsy and curiosity too.
Uh-huh.
And the way she relates to different people different ways, I think is really a lot of fun. So what's coming up next for you? Besides, we got the Spirited Talk open mic night. That's June 27th at the gym in Spring City. I always want to make sure I say Spring City correctly. And you do regular readings at the library in your area.
So I did just have an author talk that I'm trying to get out there a little bit more. Right now, as far as the lineup, May was very, very busy. May was one thing after another. We had
Yeah, it was.
Paracon right into something else, right into something else. My next events, I have book signings coming up. I've been trying to just get out to, somebody recommended go to flea markets, just go sit out there and just, sit around and wait for people to come and sit and chit chat. And I think just anything that gets me into a place where I can talk to people. I'm not much of a social media kind of girl. I like being
Right.
out there and talking to people, which is
Or
why I
as I
liked.
call it, the necessary evil. It's hard.
What you call it?
It is.
Social
Yeah.
media, the necessary evil.
Yeah, it's the only way really you
Okay.
can get out there, but it doesn't replace getting out and talk to people, and that's kind of fun because that's how we met. Is that
Yeah.
we were at a convention together, and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, this looks so cool," and then you told me about the event. I was like, "I got to have her on the podcast. We got to talk about this." So folks can go to Sonya Sonya Prichard.com and check out your events calendar,
Yep.
and also people can book you for events. They can contact you through your
Yes.
website and book
Yeah.
you for events because you do reading book readings and signings and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would love that. I've had a lot of people ask, can you come join my book club? We'd love to read your book and then, join the book club. Um, like I said, I just would be interested in anything where I can come and just talk to people. Even, the author talk that I just did at the library was more so, how do you self-publish? How do you do that piece of it? If people are interested, I know I wouldn't have known how to do it unless I talked to somebody that I spoke with. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I also want to help people who have a story in their head get their stories out. So, reach out, go to my website. There's a contact me button. Hit that, reach out. I'll get your email. I would gladly chat through any possible options that you want to chat through.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Again, folks can go to SonyaPrichard.com and get some information. And I think people should actually contact you to maybe start doing some more of these spirited talks.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know.
Maybe you can get some folks in a little further out in the region and
Yeah.
do something like that because it's such a great. Again, the name of the book is Shades of the Lingering, and you can buy that directly through Amazon. All the other information is on SonyaPrichard.com. Sonya, any final words for us?
I just want to say thank you for letting me be on here. It was a pleasure meeting you. This was fun, and best of luck to you.
It was awesome to meet you. Remember, when you do light as a feather, stiff as a board, don't pick the chubby kid. And don't write me letters, people, because I am the chubby kid. Okay. I just speak from experience that, it doesn't work. So once again, thank you so much. Go out and read Shades of the Lingering by Sonya Prichard. And thank you all for listening. And remember, stay kooky out there. Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.